Sophia Mitchell had always been a focus student. Growing up in a quiet suburb outside of London, she was the type who color-coded her notes, timed her revision sessions with military precision, and planned her academic year in calendar blocks by September. Everyone said she was destined for something big, and that pressure, while flattering at times, had become the invisible weight she carried everywhere. Her final exams at university were the culmination of years of relentless studying, sacrifice, and discipline. She couldn't afford distractions. Not now. Her grandmother, Evelyn, had been her sanctuary. While Sophia's parents worked long hours in finance and consultancy, Evelyn had been the one who made school lunches, waited outside the ballet studio, and stayed up until midnight to proofread essays. When Sophia moved away to university, she called Evelyn nearly every evening, sometimes just for a few minutes to talk about the weather, sometimes for an hour to vent about coursework, friends, or the unbearable pressure she placed on herself. Evelyn always listened without interrupting, always reminded her that she was more than her grades. But in early May, during a stretch of particularly grueling exams, Sophia noticed a subtle change. One missed call, then two. Then a full day went by with no call at all. It was unlike Evelyn. She never let a day pass without checking in. Sophia brushed it off at first, convincing herself that her grandmother must have just forgotten, or maybe the phone was misplaced again. It had happened before. And still, her mother's texts continued like clockwork, full of cheerful small talk. "Hope your exam went well today. Keep going, sweetheart. Love you." Nothing about Evelyn. When Sophia asked directly, "Have you seen Grandma today?" the reply came quickly. "Yes, she's fine. Just a little tired. You focus on your exam prep." That had been enough to push the worry aside temporarily. After all, Evelyn had been slowing down lately. The winter had been hard on her knees, and she mentioned more than once that her walks to the post office left her winded. Sophia promised herself she'd visit as soon as exams were over. Just one more week. Then she'd surprise her with flowers and make them tea, like always. As days turned into nights filled with flashcards and mock essays, Sophia grew more and more isolated. Her roommates, equally buried in academic stress, barely saw one another. Meals were instant noodles, and sleep was broken by dreams of forgotten formulas or running late to an exam. She clung to the idea that her grandmother was still there, waiting on the other side of the finish line with her warm smile and familiar hug. It kept her grounded. What she didn't know, what no one had told her, was that Evelyn had suffered a massive stroke in the early hours of April 28th. Her parents had received the call from the care assistant, who checked in every morning. By the time they reached the hospital, Evelyn was gone. No pain, the doctor said. No suffering. It had been swift. In the days that followed, Sophia's parents made a decision they believed to be selfless. They sat in their living room, surrounded by paperwork, grief thick in the air, and convinced themselves that telling Sophia now, with her entire future hanging in the balance, would only crush her. "She'll fall apart," her mother had said, red-eyed, holding Evelyn's scarf in her lap. "If she finds out right now, she won't be able to finish the exams. Everything she worked for, it'll be ruined." Her father, ever pragmatic, agreed. "We'll manage it. Handle the funeral, clear the flat, sort out the will. We'll tell her when the exams are done. It's just a few weeks." And so, the great lie of omission began. Sophia continued calling Evelyn's number, which went straight to voicemail. She left messages, cheerful ones, hopeful ones. "Hi, Grandma. Just finished another exam. I think I nailed it. Miss you. I'll call again tomorrow." She didn't notice the faint strain in her mother's voice during their weekly check-ins. Didn't pick up on the delay before her father replied, "Everything's fine." The funeral happened without her. A small, quiet service. Only close relatives and a few neighbors attended. Her parents told people that Sophia couldn't attend because of university. No one questioned it. In the meantime, Sophia pushed through the last of her exams with sheer willpower. The final paper was brutal, but she managed to hold herself together. When it was over, she collapsed in her dorm bed and slept for nearly 12 hours. The next day, she finally allowed herself to breathe. She messaged her mom, "I'm free. Coming home Saturday. Can't wait to see you guys." And Grandma. The reply came with terrifying speed. Can't wait to see you too. Love you. Nothing about Evelyn. Sophia didn't question it. Not yet. On Saturday morning, she packed a small suitcase, bought a bouquet of lavender, Evelyn's favorite, and got on the train. She felt light for the first time in weeks. The sky was bright. Her Spotify playlist was upbeat. She texted her grandmother's number just before arriving. Surprise visit coming your way. The message never delivered. When the taxi dropped her off near Evelyn's flat, she got out, heart fluttering, only to stop dead in her tracks. The curtains were gone. The porch light was off. A to let sign was posted on the fence. Her breath caught. Maybe Evelyn moved? She walked up to the front door. No familiar flower pots. The mailbox had a new name on it, someone she didn't recognize. She rang the bell anyway. No one answered. Her hands began to shake as she pulled out her phone and called her mother. The call connected. Her mother's voice was flat, unreadable. Hi, darling. Are you home? I'm at Grandma's. Where's she? A long pause. She's not there. I can see that. Sophia snapped, voice rising. Where's she? Another silence. Then the words fell, slow and heavy. She passed away a month ago. Sophia stood frozen on the porch, bouquet still clutched in her hand, staring at the house that once smelled like vanilla and old books. The world tilted under her feet. A month ago, she whispered, "We didn't want to burden you during your exams. You had so much on your plate. It all happened so fast, sweetheart. She wouldn't have wanted you to. You buried her without me?" Sophia said, barely breathing. "You didn't even let me say goodbye?" Tears welled in her eyes, but none fell. Her hand clenched the bouquet until the stem snapped. On the other end of the line, her mother was crying now too, apologizing, explaining, justifying. But Sophia couldn't hear any of it. Her heart pounded in her ears. The truth hung in the air like smoke after a fire. She turned, walked back down the steps, and dropped the lavender in the bin. That was the moment the exams stopped mattering. That was the moment she realized that no achievement could replace the loss of a final embrace, a whispered goodbye, or the dignity of mourning in real time. And worse than the grief was the feeling of betrayal. The silence her parents had wrapped around her like bubble wrap, pretending it was love. The train ride back from Evelyn's empty house was a blur. Sophia didn't even remember how she got from the quiet street to the station platform, or what she did with her suitcase. Her phone sat silent in her lap as she stared out of the train window, her reflection flickering in the glass beside trees and houses rushing by. Her chest felt hollow, like someone had carved her out from the inside and left the skin untouched, so no one would notice the damage. She was present, breathing, blinking, but completely disconnected from everything around her. When she arrived home, her parents were waiting in the kitchen, sitting at the table like they had rehearsed this moment 100 times. Her mother's eyes were red. Her father's hands were clasped tightly together on the table, knuckles white. Sophia stepped inside, not out of desire, but necessity, because she had nowhere else to go. She didn't say a word. She dropped her bag by the stairs and stood in the doorway, as if entering their home could somehow invalidate the gravity of what they had done. "Sophia," her mother began softly, "please let us explain." "You already explained." Sophia cut her off. Her voice was low and hoarse, like it hadn't been used in years. "You lied." "We didn't lie," her father said. "We withheld." "Don't play semantics with me," she snapped, eyes sharp with fury. "You lied. By omission, by silence, by every text where you said nothing. You made me think she was alive while you were picking out a coffin." Her mother broke into tears again. "We thought we were protecting you." "No," Sophia said firmly. "You were protecting your idea of me. Your version of what a successful daughter looks like. The one who gets perfect grades and doesn't fall apart. You decided I couldn't handle grief and exams at the same time. So you chose for me." They sat in silence, tension thick and suffocating. Her father looked like he wanted to argue, to justify it with logic and intentions. But her expression made it clear she wasn't accepting any of it. "Not now. I missed her funeral," Sophia whispered. "I missed holding her hand. I miss saying goodbye." "She wouldn't have wanted you to fail your exams," her mother said weakly. "She wouldn't have wanted to die alone." Sophia left the kitchen before either of them could speak again. She climbed the stairs slowly, her legs heavy, and entered her childhood bedroom. Everything looked the same as when she'd left it. Posters on the wall, books lined neatly on the shelf, a few photos of her and Evelyn on the dresser. She crossed the room and sat on the floor. For a while, she just sat, not thinking, not crying, just sitting in the quiet. Then she picked up the framed photo on her dresser. Evelyn, smiling, her arms wrapped around a 10-year-old Sophia who had just lost her first tooth. There was something painfully permanent about the smile in that photo, as if Evelyn had been frozen in time and Sophia had been dragged forward without her. Hours passed. Her phone buzzed twice. A message from a friend and one from her professor reminding her to submit the final reflective essay. She deleted both. It was only the next morning, after another silent breakfast with her parents, that she decided to go to the cemetery. She didn't ask for directions. She didn't need to. She knew where her grandmother would be. Evelyn had spoken often about the place she wanted to be buried, a modest cemetery on the edge of town, next to the park she used to walk in. Sophia borrowed her father's car without asking. No one tried to stop her. When she arrived, the gate creaked open with a metallic sigh. The groundskeeper was trimming hedges at the far end, nodding politely as she walked past. She found the grave within minutes, a polished granite headstone, freshly carved, still surrounded by flowers. Her chest tightened when she saw the name. Evelyn Margaret Mitchell, beloved mother, grandmother, and friend. April 1945 to April 2024. Sophia stood there unmoving. The wind rustled the nearby trees. She crouched down slowly, tracing the letters with her fingers as if touching the name might bring her closer. Some of the flowers had wilted, others were still vibrant. She glanced at the tags. Most were from extended family. One was from her parents, dated the day of the funeral. Another bouquet was from a woman named Jeanette, Evelyn's neighbor and bingo partner. And then there was one with no tag, just fresh lavender tied with twine. Sophia stared at it. She hadn't brought anything. In her rush, in her anger, she hadn't thought about bringing flowers. But here was lavender, her grandmother's favorite, placed gently at the base of the headstone by someone who had remembered when she hadn't. Sophia sat on the grass, legs crossed, hands in her lap. "Hi," she whispered. "It's me." She told Evelyn everything. How the exams had gone. How she felt something was wrong, but convinced herself otherwise. How the lie had slowly poisoned her trust. She talked for nearly an hour, as if the grave could hear her. As if Evelyn was just beneath the surface, listening with that same soft gaze she always had. By the end, her throat was raw, her hands cold, but she had said it. She had told her goodbye. As she left the cemetery, she stopped by the local florist and bought the largest bouquet of lavender they had. She didn't take it back to the grave. She took it home. That evening, after another tense and wordless dinner, Sophia walked into the living room where her parents were watching the news. She held out the flowers to her mother. "These are for her," she said, "but I'm keeping them in my room, because I never got to give her any." Her mother took the flowers in silence, tears welling again, but said nothing. Sophia turned to leave, but paused at the doorway. "I don't forgive you," she said. "I don't know when or if I will. But I'm here. For now." And she meant it. She didn't want to burn everything to the ground. She didn't want to destroy her relationship with her parents. Not completely. But the bond had been cracked, and cracks didn't heal with time alone. They needed accountability. Truth. Repair. That night, she placed the lavender on her desk. The scent filled the room as she opened her laptop and pulled up her grandmother's old emails. There weren't many. Evelyn preferred phone calls, but there was one from last year with an attachment, a scanned letter, a birthday card written by hand, in which Evelyn had included a PS in blue ink. "If I'm not around one day, remember you were always my brightest light, even when you didn't see it. Don't ever let anyone decide what you can or can't handle." Sophia stared at that line for a long time. Her fists clenched around the mousepad. The ache in her chest pulsed like a drum. That was the moment she decided she wouldn't let her grief stay boxed in. She would ask questions. She would open Evelyn's storage boxes. She would uncover what had been taken from her. Because this wasn't just about loss. It was about truth and reclaiming what had been stolen in silence. The attic had always felt off limits. Not forbidden, not locked, just untouchable. A place of cobwebs, holiday boxes, old textbooks, and forgotten baby clothes. Sophia hadn't been up there since she was a child, helping her dad bring down Christmas decorations. Now, standing in the hallway with her arms folded and her heart pounding, it felt like the only place left where Evelyn might still exist. Her parents were out. They hadn't said where. Since her return, the atmosphere at home had been like walking through smoke, still hot with the memory of fire. Conversations were clipped. Her mother's attempts at warmth felt strained and artificial, like someone playing a role too carefully. Her father avoided her altogether, often retreating into his study and closing the door as though it were a fortress. She didn't care. She didn't want apologies anymore. She wanted the truth they hadn't offered. And that truth, she believed, was somewhere among Evelyn's things. The attic door creaked as she pulled it down. The wooden steps folded out shakily. She climbed slowly, each step loud in the silence of the house. When she reached the top, a beam of daylight from a cracked skylight lit up the dust in the air like floating ash. The space smelled of old cardboard, wood, and something faintly floral, maybe a remnant of Evelyn's perfume clinging to her boxes. She scanned the room. Boxes marked with masking tape lined the floor. Some were labeled Christmas decor, Sophia, primary school, kitchenware, Evelyn. Her chest tightened. She crouched near the corner and opened the one labeled Evelyn desk. Inside were things she recognized. A chipped mug she'd given Evelyn on her 15th birthday that read World's Best Grandma, old paper clips and pens in a ceramic cup, a crumpled notepad with shopping lists, and a tiny leather pouch with her grandmother's reading glasses. But beneath that, wrapped carefully in yellowed tissue paper, was a stack of envelopes. Dozens. She lifted them gently. They were bound in 3 neat bundles with string. The handwriting on each one was unmistakably Evelyn's. Her looping cursive just slightly tilted to the right. Each envelope had a date and a name. Sophia. The earliest was from 2010. Sophia had been 5. She sat down cross-legged on the attic floor, slowly untying the first bundle. She opened the first letter, careful not to tear the paper. It read, "My dear Sophia, today you learned to spell the word elephant on your own and were so proud. You told the cashier at the grocery store." I couldn't stop laughing. I'm writing this so you'll know these moments, even if you forget them. One day, when you're older, I hope this brings you joy. I love you endlessly. Tears sprang to Sophia's eyes as she clutched the page. This wasn't just a sentimental habit. Evelyn had written to her for years, privately, silently, documenting her life like a secret memoir. She read through several more. Notes from birthdays, descriptions of small milestones, observations of Sophia's kindness, stubbornness, brilliance. Letters written after difficult times, too. When Sophia's parents had missed her school play, when she came home crying about bullies, when she didn't get into the dance program she'd auditioned for at 11. You are not what others say you are. You are what you decide to become. In one letter, dated the summer before Sophia had left for university, Evelyn confessed how hard it was to let her go. But she also wrote how proud she was. How she knew Sophia would light up new spaces the way she always lit up this home. Then Sophia found the most recent one, the final one. It was dated just 2 days before Evelyn's death. Her hands trembled as she peeled open the flap. Sophia, my light. If you're reading this, it means something happened before I could say goodbye in person. Please don't cry for me. I've lived a full, rich life, and you've been my greatest joy. I worry that others may try to protect you from pain, but you don't need protecting. You've always been stronger than they saw. Don't be angry too long. Life is short, and hearts heal when they're used often. Forgive, if not for them, then for yourself. But don't forget, grief, like love, is part of being alive. The letter ended with a small sketch of a flower, lavender, and beneath it, a line written in faded blue ink. You carry me now. Sophia broke then. Not with rage this time, not with bitterness. Just sorrow, deep and quiet. She lay curled up on the attic floor, clutching the final letter to her chest, and sobbing a way she hadn't since she was a child. Raw, unfiltered, unable to stop. The kind of grief that came in waves, dragging her under again just when she thought she could breathe. When she finally stood, knees stiff and eyes red, she felt changed. The letters weren't just keepsakes, they were a map. A record of love that her parents hadn't been able to destroy, no matter how much they had tried to protect her from the truth. She gathered the letters and brought them to her room. That night, she didn't turn on the lights. She sat by her window, moonlight spilling across her desk, rereading lines that made her laugh and others that shattered her. She slept with the last letter under her pillow. The next day, Sophia confronted her mother. "Did you know about these?" she asked, holding up the bundle. Her mother froze, then nodded slowly. "We found them when we packed her things. Your father said we should keep them safe. I didn't open them." Sophia looked her in the eye. "You didn't keep them safe. You kept them from me." Her mother started to cry again, but Sophia didn't comfort her. "You had no right to decide when I was allowed to feel pain. You robbed me of my grief. You turned it into suspicion, confusion, and silence. I thought I was helping. No, Mom, you were helping yourself, because you couldn't bear to see me hurt." Her mother collapsed into the armchair, speechless. Sophia didn't raise her voice. She didn't shout. Her pain didn't need volume. It carried its own gravity. She walked away, calm and certain. Later that afternoon, she emailed the university and asked to defer her final essay submission. She explained briefly, truthfully. Her professor replied with sympathy and immediate approval. That evening, Sophia made tea the way Evelyn used to. Not microwaved water, but properly boiled, with a pinch of cinnamon. She sat at the dining table with the letters spread before her and began scanning them into her laptop. Not to share, just to preserve, digitally and emotionally, because this time, she was in control of the story. She created a folder on her desktop and titled it Letters from Her. Then she opened a blank Word document. She didn't know what she would write yet. Maybe her own letter, maybe a journal entry, maybe nothing. But the cursor blinked, and for the first time in weeks, it didn't feel like pressure. It felt like a door she could choose to open. Not because someone else had chosen for her, but because she was ready. The week that followed felt like a long exhale after holding her breath for too long. There was no dramatic change, no sudden burst of peace, but something inside Sophia had quietly shifted. The raw edge of grief had softened just enough for her to function. She began taking slow walks through the neighborhood where she had grown up, headphones in her ears, but no music playing, just silence and wind and the crunch of gravel beneath her shoes. Her parents kept their distance. They tiptoed around her, their guilt hanging in the air like damp clothes that refused to dry. At first, Sophia didn't engage. Not out of cruelty, but because she needed space. Emotional distance was no longer a silent punishment. It was self-preservation. But as the days passed, she noticed small gestures. A cup of tea left at her door, the attic light fixed, her laundry folded without a word. Her mother's grief was visible now. The guarded mask she had worn for so long had finally cracked. Once, Sophia caught her sitting on Evelyn's favorite armchair, staring into space, her lips moving as if in prayer or apology. Still, Sophia wasn't ready to talk. Not yet. Instead, she focused on Evelyn, on honoring what had been stolen, the chance to say goodbye. She couldn't change the fact that she had missed the funeral, but she could create something of her own, something private, something hers. It started with a simple idea, a memorial walk. She planned a route from Evelyn's old house, through the park, to the bench where they used to sit and share sandwiches, then up the hill where Evelyn loved to watch the sky change color in the evenings. Sophia packed a small backpack with essentials, a thermos of tea, a photo of Evelyn, the final letter, and a small packet of lavender seeds she had found in the kitchen drawer, likely forgotten for years. On Sunday morning, just after sunrise, she left the house without telling her parents. The streets were empty, bathed in soft gold light. She paused outside Evelyn's old flat, not to mourn, but to acknowledge. The windows were still bare. The sign still hung on the gate. Someone new would live there soon. Life didn't wait for grief to finish its course. As she walked through the park, memories came like waves. Evelyn's laugh as pigeons fought over breadcrumbs, the way she used to sing to squirrels under her breath, the way her hand always reached out instinctively when Sophia stumbled on uneven pavement. The path opened up to a quiet clearing with a wooden bench, still damp from morning dew. Sophia wiped it with her sleeve and sat down. She pulled out the photo and the letter. "Hi," she said softly. "I'm here now." She didn't cry. She just spoke. She read the letter aloud, her voice cracking only once, and then she poured the tea and took a long sip. The taste transported her back to rainy days at Evelyn's kitchen table, the steam curling through the air while they talked about books and dreams and the future. After finishing her tea, she walked to the top of the hill and dug a small hole beneath a tree that had just begun to bud. She poured the lavender seeds into the earth and whispered, "For you." She covered them gently and pressed her palm to the soil. For a long time, she stood there, the wind lifting her hair, the early sun warming her face. No one interrupted. No one witnessed it. And that was exactly how she wanted it. This goodbye wasn't for anyone else. It didn't require a priest or a eulogy or a polished coffin. It was made of memory and meaning. By the time she returned home, the house was quiet. Her mother was at the sink, washing dishes, her movements slow and mechanical. Her father sat on the couch, flipping through the newspaper, but clearly not reading it. Sophia walked in, placed her empty thermos on the table, and said, "We need to talk." They looked up, surprised. She sat down. "I've been angry," she began, not accusing, just stating, "because you made a decision for me that you had no right to make." Her mother looked down. Her father closed the newspaper slowly. "But I've also realized," Sophia continued, "that you were grieving too. And scared. You thought you were helping." "I thought I was doing the right thing," her mother whispered. "I know," Sophia replied, "but it wasn't. And I need you to know that it broke something in me. It will take time to repair." "I'm sorry," her father said, voice low. "We failed you." And her. The honesty in his tone surprised her. For once, he wasn't trying to rationalize. Just regret. That she could sit with. "I've said goodbye to her in my own way," Sophia said. "I read her last letter. I planted lavender where she used to watch the sky." Her mother covered her mouth and started to cry. "I'm not asking you to fix anything," Sophia added. "I just want truth from now on. Even if it's hard. Especially if it's hard. You'll have it," her mother whispered through tears. Sophia nodded, and for the first time, the silence between them didn't feel hostile. It felt full. In the following days, things changed subtly but surely. Her parents began telling small stories about Evelyn at dinner, no longer avoiding her name like it was radioactive. They invited Sophia to go through some of Evelyn's boxes together. It was awkward at first. Some photos brought fresh pain, but it also gave them a shared language again. One evening, while cleaning out the hallway cabinet, Sophia found a voice recorder. She clicked play. Evelyn's voice, warm and clear, filled the room. "If you're listening to this, you've probably made a mess in my cupboard looking for biscuits. Shame on you. But since you're here, remember to water the orchids. And remember that I love you." They laughed through tears, all three of them. Sophia returned to university a week later, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. She spoke to her professor, explained everything in person, and turned in her reflective essay on her own terms. It wasn't about exams anymore. It was about reclaiming her voice. Her words. The final paragraph of her essay read, "We often speak of strength as the ability to push through. But I've learned it's also about knowing when to stop, when to feel, when to fall apart and rebuild. Grief isn't a distraction, it's a teacher. And love doesn't protect us from pain. It walks us through it." A month later, Sophia visited the park again. The spot where she had planted the lavender now showed tiny green sprouts reaching through the soil. A small beginning. Quiet. Steady. Like healing. She sat on the same bench and watched the sky. "I miss you," she whispered. But this time it wasn't a plea. It was a promise. To remember. To live. To choose truth, even when it hurt. Evelyn had said, "You carry me now." And Sophia knew she did.